Tonight, the episode of It's Your Call is one of a continuing series dedicated to facing the mortgage crisis, brought to you with the support of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Good evening, I'm your host, Roger Bowman. The recession has brought with it an increasing need for outreach services from our communities. Many people find they now need help from charitable organizations and state agencies to meet a variety of needs. The mortgage crisis brings financial problems and evictions, both for the homeowners and for renters. One of the resources we can turn to is our local 211 service. Tonight, I have with me in the studio the directors of the 211 programs for each of the 4 greater area counties. They're here to tell us how we can help and what you can expect when you reach out to them. I'd like you to call with your questions of these directors. The toll-free number is 866-367-5827. Welcome to each of you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you. And to you as well, Lyz.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's do introductions first. Craig, we'll start with you. Who are you and what organization are you with?
My name is Craig Redelsperger, Director of 211 Riverside County, and it's a program at the Volunteer Center of Riverside County.
Wonderful.
Yes, I'm Judy Bowden. I'm the Executive Director for 211 Orange County, and we do the same service.
All right.
Hi, I'm Gary Madden, and I'm the Director of 211 San Bernardino County. It's an internal program to Inland Empire United Way.
Wonderful.
And I'm Maribel Marin. I'm the Executive Director of 211 LA County, formerly Infoline of Los Angeles, and we're an independent nonprofit that's been around since 1981.
Wow, has the 211 service been since 1981?
No, we launched 211 in 2005.
So it's a fairly new service.
It's somewhat new. Our phone number is new, but it's still the same service that we actually provided since 1981. Information and referral is still our basic service that we provide to everybody.
Wonderful. And lastly?
My name is Lyz Melendez, and I am a resource specialist with 211 of LA County.
Wonderful. Thank you each for being here. So tell me in a nutshell, and I'll direct it out to anybody who wants to answer, what is 211?
Where the phone book leaves off, that's where 211 starts.
Elaborate for me. What do you mean by that? That's a good phrase. What do you mean by that?
Where do you find an elderly gentleman breaks his glasses and doesn't have the funds to fix them? Where does he go to find a resource like that? Well, 211 is it.
A lot of times people don't know what they need. They just know what their problems are and that they need help. So 211 is able to work with the caller, assess their situation, determine what programs are available to that person, programs that that person probably didn't even know existed. So we're doing that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in 140 different languages.
Well, I have to be honest. Many of our viewers probably know what the 211 service is, but as of a couple of months ago, I didn't. I had never heard of it. So tell me about 211. Who can get to 211 and how do they do it?
Anyone. Anyone can call 211. It's a phone number, and you can call it from your cell phone or your pay phone or your landline, and we have specialists who will answer the phone, a live voice, and help them through their issues. They just say, I have a problem, and I don't know what to do, and they'll interview and work with the person until they figure out all the resources that they need.
Judy, you mentioned cell phones. I thought it had to be a landline, a home phone.
No, we've worked with the cell phone providers to make sure that they all work. And if your cell phone doesn't work, they should call. There's always an 800 number to call. Call the agency and say, my cell phone doesn't work, and we'll follow up and make sure that provider makes their cell phone work.
It's also available on cable phones. So anybody who's using cable to get their home phones, you can also dial 211 through that system. And it's TTY enabled, so if you're a person who requires TTY devices to communicate, you can dial 211 directly from that.
Okay, so 411 charges you on your phone bill. How do you charge people?
We don't.
It's a free call.
It's a free call. It's toll-free.
Toll-free.
And there's no charge for the service.
Not to the caller.
So they get about a minute of your time?
We will stay on the line as long as necessary to provide an assessment and give a referral. We don't have any time limits on our calls.
So tell me what a typical call is. Take me through one.
Before we go through a call, I just want to add that people like to call from their business.
Yes.
And business phones, when you hear a dial tone, you dial 9 to get a dial tone, and you think you have the outside line. It's not really an outside line. So if you're calling from a business, you may have to use the toll-free 800 number because business phones have to be deliberately programmed to pass a 211 call.
Okay, so that is one exemption that will trip some people up.
Right.
So 211 is actually out there, but the business phone system internal to that company hasn't been programmed to allow that call.
Correct. It'll wait until all the numbers are there. So when you dial 211, it goes, I'm waiting for the rest of the numbers.
So given that there is an 800 number, you probably know what's coming next. I'm going to ask you after the show, give me the 800 numbers and we'll put it on our website. So if people go to kvcr.org, they'll be able to see the 800 numbers in case they want to call from a business. Other than that, I think it's pretty easy to remember 211. So how about that call? Take me through it if you would.
Well, a typical call, our first objective is to establish rapport with the caller. And the great thing about 211 is that the whole purpose of the person on the other end of the phone line is to help the caller. That's what our staffs are there for. Their objective is to find out what that caller needs and to help that caller. So they're going to establish rapport with the caller. They're going to find out what the caller's situation is. And many times, like Maribel says, the caller knows they have a problem, but they can't really say, this is my need. So our people are trained to be able to dig through what they're telling them to find out exactly what their needs are. And then using national standards and a database of resources, this is the resources for San Bernardino County alone, then to find the proper and appropriate resources to connect that person to.
And
So
I think also, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, no.
I think also just as important as the information that they can expect to get from 211 is that they have a person that is going to be understanding and non-judgmental about whatever the issues are that person is facing. And I think in this day and age, that's a very important component to being able to feel comfortable to call a number, any number, and say, wow, I'm about to share so much of what's going on in my life right now, and I really want somebody that's going to be able to help me and get me past everything that I'm going through and give me some information that I can move forward with.
So do you have callers that they call but they're tentative, they almost hesitate to reveal that both the personal crisis they're going through and maybe their lapse of judgment that led to it, for some people, and for others, of course, it's just the circumstances that drove them. But I'm sure there's proud people that don't want to be placing that call.
Right. Certainly a lot of people do feel that hesitation, but I think that the fact that we're anonymous and confidential, we don't ask identifying information other than a zip code. We will provide the referrals and we'll do the assessment. We don't need to have identifying information. So it is really, we provide a stigma-free environment, and it's very easy for people to talk about their situation because they're not revealing themselves.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Greg,
and so what we'll do is we'll establish a rapport, like you're saying, and then we'll start asking them what's going on, what help do they need. So usually problems aren't just one thing that's wrong. There's a multitude of issues going on, 3, 4, however many there are. And the call specialist will then look at each one of those, break it down, and try to assign or match a service in the county or the area that the person is calling from. So we ask the zip code so we can get the service to them that's in their area, have them match up with that. So that's kind of how the call goes, and the length of that can vary. Sometimes it can be quick if they know exactly what they want. If they don't know, then it'll take some time to really dig down and get that information out.
Well, give me an example, and Gary, you mentioned about how sometimes they know they have a problem, but they can't identify that need. What's a situation where it might not be immediately clear to them what they need? Can you think of one?
I don't know what to do with my son. He's driving us crazy, and we can't seem to control him. Now, that could be a number of things.
Right.
And there could be a number of agencies that might be able to help. So we have to get more specific before we can find out what would be the proper direction to go with this kind of a problem.
Right.
So 211 is not just to call and I need some extra food or infant formula.
Right.
It's truly a variety of issues and problems. Do you really have resources for the breadth of that level of questions and need?
Well, in LA alone, there's 28,000 different programs and services that are in our database, and we know we don't have them all. There's not going to be a solution for every single case, but there is likely going to be at least a couple of referrals to give you to start you off on your track. Maybe not for one particular issue or concern in your life, but maybe others. So there's a little something for everybody, we believe.
We like to say we're cradle to grave. We have services for all areas.
Okay, that's amazing. We're going to take our first call already. Mr. West from Riverside, it's your call. You're on the air.
I want to know if 211 is an emergency number.
Go ahead, Mr. West, and state that one more time for me.
Is 211 an actual emergency number?
Is it an emergency number?
It's not like 911. It's if there's a life-threatening situation, you still need to call 911. But we handle other types of crisis situations. Suicide, we do handle suicide calls, domestic violence calls, elder abuse calls. So we deal with personal emergencies as opposed to life-threatening emergencies.
Now, in the event of an emergency or a disaster, countywide or even a city in a specific county, we may be activated to take calls once we get information from that Office of Emergency Services, or that OES. We all have agreements with our OESs so that they can give us the exact information of where perhaps an evacuation center is, and then we relay that information so that it's accurate. So in that regard, we are in an emergency number, but for non-emergency needs, that's what 211 really is about.
Right, so it's not medical, life-threatening emergency,
Right.
but you do have some mental health aspect.
We do. We do crisis call handling, and that definitely requires the skill to be able to de-escalate the situation and to triage it with a 911 or other emergency responder if we are unable to convince the caller to make that call himself or herself. So we do handle those situations, but we do advise callers to call 911 if it is a life-threatening situation.
So what's an example of the crisis situations that you might actually get?
Well, we definitely get elder abuse calls all the time. We get calls from neighbors or family members who have seen suspicious activities or changes in behavior. There might be caregivers or family members who are taking advantage of an elderly person who is losing their memory or losing their faculties. And it is an emergency situation for that person, and we have relationships with Adult Protective Services so that we can get those situations reported to them directly. We have backdoor numbers where we can access APS staff so that there can be an immediate action taken if necessary. So we are able to triage with 911 centers as well. So we can get, we had a situation where a caller was distraught. They were in a mobile home trailer type of vehicle parked outside a mini mall threatening to, they were actually parked outside a residential area threatening to kill themselves. And we were able to get sufficient information out of the caller during the conversation, so we were able to alert local police to come, and while the agent was on the call, while the specialist was on the call, she actually could hear the police knocking on the vehicle door, coming to diffuse the situation. So, we are able to do those kinds of things and see them to conclusion.
Our purpose here tonight is to talk about how 211 can help people that are facing issues surrounding the mortgage crisis, surrounding evictions and renter needs and property renegotiations. But I have to tell you that I've been talking with you for some length for some weeks, and you're telling me things that surprise me. If you have a situation, for instance, where somebody is abusing another family member, but it's not a medical life-threatening problem, I wouldn't know who to turn to. And like you said, it's a really large phone book. I would have no idea of the 28,000 LA resources who to call. I had no idea. You can just call 211, explain that specific situation with some degree of anonymity, and they will advise you on who to contact and how to get help for that situation.
Yes.
That's
correct.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So Janet from Paris, you're on the line. It's your call. Okay. Then let's go to Alvaro from Hemet. It's your call. You're on the air. Alvaro, have we got you?
Yes, hello. Hello.
Okay, I'm going to get to my questions. Let's talk a little bit about the foreclosure crisis and the mortgage crisis right now. This, obviously, unprecedented levels, housing prices, people are upside down. Are you seeing an increase in calls related to mortgage and eviction issues?
Yes.
Yes.
Greg?
April of last year compared to this year, we saw 7 times the amount of calls. So we're definitely seeing some spikes.
Okay. And what can you offer people when, say, they call, and let's take the worst case scenario and back up from that. They've had an eviction notice slapped on their door. What do you do? Take me through that.
Well, the first thing we do is we try to figure out what exactly the need is that they have. So there's agencies that match different aspects of the crisis. When somebody's in crisis, we try to match that particular service. So we look through our database and we find which services actually provide that kind of assistance. It can vary from county to county, so I don't know how much more to elaborate on that.
Well, so say the person has just gotten the notice that they would be in a certain phase in the process of eviction. So if they're at the very beginning, there's a lot more resources that we can provide. We can refer them to a legal aid representatives that can facilitate any negotiations that are still possible, if they need legal representation in court, if that is the route that they're moving in. If it's later on in the process, if they have 24 hours, it becomes more critical and there's fewer options as you get closer. If that person has already been evicted, then the options get fewer and fewer because finding shelter is extremely difficult, especially for families. And if you're a family with small children or a family with special needs, it becomes even tougher. So the opportunity is earlier on in the process. We can connect you with agencies like the Hope line that can give you some credit counseling, talk you through how you can, if you're a homeowner, how you can deal with the foreclosure of your home. If you're a renter, there's different programs that we can have get you access to, including rental assistance from the Department of Public Social Services. So it really depends where you are in the process of the eviction or the foreclosure.
I think one thing that would be good to point out here is that we're deluged by information, tons and tons of information from all different directions. Most of it is marketing material. And having sources of information where you can trust the information is invaluable. And that is where 211 really comes in. Because if we have an information in our database, we've done our homework, and you can trust that is a qualified professional organization. That is not a scam.
So tell me a little bit about what are the common success stories that 211 has? People call for this need or perhaps that need, and that is one where very often we're able to get them help and solve that problem. What are some of the areas where you feel 211 is a clear success?
We had a call from someone up in the desert area, and this family was behind in their rent. They had their electricity turned off. They had their phone turned off. They had to borrow a phone to make the call. They had a young child with ear problems. The breadwinner, the man of the house, the father, had been injured on the job, and this child with ear problems, the mother had done work out in the field. She actually made things. She was an entrepreneur, but she had to stay home and take care of the child now, and it was February, so it was cold, and we couldn't. The call specialist had a hard time with this family because the needs were just so unbelievable. She said, "What are you cooking with?" And the woman said, "A candle." But we were able to get them help to get their rent paid up, to get their electricity turned back on, and get on a lifeline service so they had a low cost for those utilities. We were able to get them some financial aid, some space. We got them onto food stamps so that the children had food, and on the WIC program. So there were a lot of things that took place with this family to get them back on their feet. And it was a tremendous success story, but it was so powerful when we heard that, cooking with a candle.
That is amazing. Okay, we're going to go out to a call. Nancy from Ontario, you're on the line. Hello, Nancy.
Hello.
What's your question?
Hi. My question is that
Okay.
I'm a single mom
I'm going to
right
ask
now,
you,
and I'm
clarify
currently
for me the WIC
unemployed,
program.
And
Women, Infants, and Children. It's actually a federal program. The money comes from the federal government, and it is for families that qualify for this. And you are given these coupons, and it gives you what you need to help with your young children.
What's nice about the WIC program also, in addition to providing food vouchers for important things like formula and cheese and milk and cereal, what I know about it personally is that it also provides an educational component for families. And if mom is the one that's the participant for the family, the mom can sit into this class that's 30, 60 or so minutes long and learn about nutrition and how to provide good nutritional options for their children. So even though we're facing critical economical times, it's still important to maintain good, healthy standards at home. So I think that's an important component to the WIC program.
So you direct them to those kinds of educational programs?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, we have a parenting hotline within 211 where we actually are enrolling families with children 0 to 5 into health insurance programs. We have a social worker on staff for parents who are dealing with difficult situations, behavioral problems or other parental anxieties, so they can talk to a social worker. We have special trainings that we've provided to our staff so they can give information about breastfeeding. Along with referrals about breastfeeding, we can talk about different topics, developmental disabilities, developmental phases, to encourage and support young families who may not have as much experience parenting or going through some difficult times where anxiety or depression might be impacting the stability of the family. It's also a free call. It's funded by First 5 Los Angeles, and we do food stamp screening, so we are able to support the family beyond just giving them referrals.
Okay. Now I'm going to reach out to the next caller, but I want to mention our regular viewers know that we don't often have that kind of dead air that we've had over the past 3 callers. Janet, feel free to call back. The most common problem we have is that there's a delay between the time we're broadcasting live and you hear us over the phone and the time you hear us through the television signal, and that's many seconds long. So if you're only listening to the television and not to your phone, you won't hear when I say you're on the air. I give you a few seconds, but if you're not there, I go on to the next person. We've had it looks like dropouts tonight, so we're going to try the next one, make sure there's no audio problems, and make sure you're on the line. If you're calling from a cell phone, please pull over so that you don't have the drop signal as you're driving. We're going to go to Salika, San Bernardino. Hopefully you're there. Talk to us.
Hi. I have a couple questions. One, I was told that to use the service, you can use a payphone and you don't have to put coins in the dial 211. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's correct. From a payphone, you don't have to put a coin in. That's a great question. And you had another question?
And they asked me for money for food, and I asked them if they're homeless, and so I give them the 211 number, and so I just want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing.
Wonderful. You're referring people to 211. Indeed. Okay. All right, let's go out to John in Paris. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Yes, sir.
What's your question, John?
Well, my wife has been unemployed for a year and a half, and the IRS wants $16,000. And anyway, and I'm retired, so we don't have the money for a lawyer. Do they take care of that kind of problems too?
Good question.
Yeah, call 211. Will.
Yeah. Right.
Walk me through what you think would happen. Right. What can he expect?
Well, we definitely would be able to refer in LA County. We would refer to a public counsel and to legal aid. There could be additional resources provided through public agencies, but for that we would have to look in our database. But I believe the caller is from San Bernardino, so I'm not sure what kind of public legal aid is available. But they're usually nonprofit law associations.
Well, a lot of. I'm going to take another call. Then I want to talk about your funding a little bit, because in this case, what John was talking about is actually having somebody that advocates on his behalf against the very government that often funds 211, and those other programs. So let me go ahead. Alvaro from Hemet, you're back with us. Good to have you. What's your question?
Yeah, my question is about the house I have here in Hemet. Before the price was $250. Now my loan is $180. But when I tried to refinance, the real value of the house is $100,000. When I tried to talk with Countrywide to about the refinancing, they told me nothing I can do. I can drop the house and look for somewhere else. I don't know how I can fix that one, because in next month I will be deployed, and maybe I have to take care when I come back. Some ideas about that?
I don't think we can answer specific questions. There's so many different ways that mortgages can be fashioned, and who your lender is and what your situation is. What we do have is we have experts that we have in our resource directory, in our databases, who can answer those questions for you and who can do that and get you connected. And they don't have all the answers either. There's not a good solution for everybody, but for those that can be helped, be sure you call 211 and get connected to those resources before it's too late, before you get an eviction notice and it's 2 days away.
There are workshops and counseling providers that can look at the specifics of your case and tell you what options you have. And I know that we've provided some of that information, and some of it will be on your website. But to find out what is closest to your home, the best thing to do would be to call 211 for that kind of information.
Well, let's talk about the difficulty that everybody's facing right now. He mentioned that his lender is countrywide.
Right.
Whatever the lender is, a lot of people are finding it's very difficult to negotiate with those banks. Even though the banks encourage you to do that instead of going to an outside, say, paid resource, they often find that the call centers that they contact when they contact the bank are fairly unresponsive. So do you have established relationships with the bank where you can kind of break through, or do you find other resources that do the counseling and help them assess whether they can get the bank assistance? How does that work?
Yeah, we won't call the banks directly. That is not something that we do, but we do work very closely with the Hope Line and the HUD-listed organizations, which exist in every single county, and those agencies might be able to advocate on your behalf. We advocate on behalf of callers all the time to public agencies, but we won't call the banks. We're not in the business of working with banks. We advise persistence. The reality is that a lot of people are trying to get through to the banks, and sometimes it's not that the bank is wanting to be unresponsive, is that they have a backlog of calls to return, and you just need to be patient and persistent and remain courteous so that you can eventually get through. We have had that experience within our own organization of employees who are going through that situation on a personal basis, and we know that persistence and courteousness does pay off. It does take some time, but that's because a lot of people are in the same situation and are using the same avenues to try and communicate.
And by persistence, you mean call back steadily, frequently, maybe make a note of the times you've called, so that each time you can mention the accumulation of calls.
Write letters.
And also, in the meantime, I think it's a good idea for our homeowners to be able to embrace whatever resources are there while they're waiting to make contact with their lender. And that's where 211 can be a great resource for them, because the resources that we have to work with, like for example in LA County, we have the Los Angeles County Department of Consumer Affairs. They have a wealth of information on their website that we can provide the callers that they can look into, and they can educate themselves in the meantime. A lot of times it's very scary to be a homeowner and not know for how long you're going to be able to maintain your home. And not hearing and being able to make contact with a lender is a scary thought. So I think it's really helpful for the callers that will call in to know 211 can put you in touch with organizations that can provide the guidance that you're going to need. Maybe not personal representation if that's not the case that you're going to fit into, but at least overall general information, so that you walk in making a phone call to your lender and you're a little bit more educated on what your options are, and that you feel that you've got maybe not total control, but some control in terms of where you want this to go.
Okay. Now we have other callers.
Well, I was going to say, and don't let anxiety lead you to become a victim of fraud or scams, because that's how you get preyed on. You lose patience and you respond to an ad or to a phone call
or a mailing
or to a promise of guaranteed success, guaranteed the outcome that you want, and you pay somebody a lot of money, and then at the end of the day, you've lost your home.
I see some chuckling and nodding, so I'm gathering that's a common problem that you're encountering right now is people that are feeling frustrated by the avenue they're taking, responding to one of those mailers or a call or a solicitation, and finding themselves in worse trouble.
They'll lose all their savings.
So how are you affiliated with organizations that can help that?
Well, the Department of Consumer Affairs is our primary source. They provide information on what to look out for, red flags. You can go to their website and pull down that information. There's also a way to complain if you suspect a fraud or scam. And you can also talk to one of their agents. They also have a call center, and you can get that number by calling us.
One of the problems that I think I, as well as our viewers, have is we all hear the rumors or what everybody knows, which may not be factual. So, for instance, is it a true statement that anybody who's going to help you in the renegotiation process should be doing it for free? Otherwise, it's a scam.
There are organizations that will do it for no charge, but that doesn't mean they're the only legitimate organizations. Right. Each county has an aging agency also. In San Bernardino County, it's Aging and Adult Services, and they also have a tremendous amount of good information about what scams are out there and what to beware of. And they have their own senior hotline, so we can always call 211 and get connected to that too. So if you're an elder, and they have specific information about issues for those that are longer lived.
So in this case, you just mentioned not all agencies won't ask for a fee. The difference I think 211 provides is you screen them to make sure they're a legitimate organization. When they're asking for a fee, they're going to provide the service they say.
And we will list all of the ones that are free, that are affiliated with HUD, for instance. So if you're interested in that type of service, you can get that information from us.
Okay, and I just want to make sure, Jennifer from Upland, you're on the air. What's your question?
My question is, I'm a single mom and I'm currently unemployed right now. I have absolutely no income. I have no emergency savings at all, and my house is going to be foreclosed. So my question to you is that I received the notice a couple days ago. From that notice, is there a time limit before they actually come over and have me evacuate the premises, or what?
Well, the first step that you want to take is you want to contact the lender. And again, we just talked about how in some cases that may be a little bit difficult. But you certainly should not sit on that notice and wait for them to make the next move. I think the moment that, even before the notice comes, the moment that you know that you're aware that you're going to have difficulty or that you are having difficulty, you need to make the call. You need to call to get some help.
Calling the lender is indeed something I think most people should do. And I know from personal experience with people that I know that it can be difficult to get anything other than, pay it current, something like that. The old collection practices, as opposed to the empathy of the situation. Does 211 provide an alternative? Can you tell them, okay, this is the sequence you can expect. If you can't resolve it with the lender, this comes next, then this.
We do have, again, information, and it's not the same for every call. So that's the benefit of calling each 211, that you get the information that pertains to your particular situation. There are great tools, even information that we will give our callers. There's a self-assessment tool that, depending on the type of mortgage, the type of loan that you have, it'll walk you through assessing on where you fall in. What are your options? Do you qualify for a loan modification? And if you don't, what is your next option after that? So again, that's the reason why we want to encourage people to call.
Okay, from Los Angeles, Caroline, it's your call. You're on the air.
Hello, I'm calling because my daughter and I have a couple pieces of property, and we have a unit. We have two units, and it's top heavy. And I was just wondering about refinancing it. I can't give you figures right now. I've been tearing through all my paperwork because I just turned to your station, and I'm tearing through all my paperwork trying to get you some exact information so I could get some exact information back from you. But we have a jumbo loan, and the jumbo loan, we're paying on the jumbo loan like $2,800 a month. and the income from the property is like, let's see, the income from the property is like $1,200. So we want to do something so that we're not so top heavy.
I understand, Caroline.
Can you give me any suggestions?
Okay, so in that case, you're talking about people that are seeing themselves slowly go underwater. That's a common situation. Now, these are not the mental health crisis issues. These are not, I lack food, or my electricity is cut off, or in that worst case, they're cooking by a candle. Is this something that 211 can help with?
The answer is yes, but we would need to know, for instance, it sounded like maybe she's not the resident of the home.
It sounded like she's the owner of the unit, has renters,
it's
and
an income property.
There's a gap. Yeah, there's a gap between her income and the amount of the mortgage that's going to slowly sink her.
But okay, well, if she is the actual, if she actually resides in the home, it's very different than if it's an income property. If she actually resides in the home and she's current on her mortgage payments, then there's a potential that she might be eligible for the Homeowner Affordability and Stability Plan that is affiliated with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So you would have to find out if the mortgage qualifies under that program. You have to find out who the lender is, and it's based on who the lenders are. So if that were the case, then we could give her some referrals. There would be a program that she would fit into. If her situation is different, we'd have to look maybe to some of the other programs and see if she fits into. There's other modification programs that are available, so she could try and modify her loan. Refinancing is not always the best option. Refinancing sometimes will take longer, and you'll still end up having to make payments that will eventually make you fall behind. And so there's all kinds of issues that we would have to assess what her specific situation is.
Okay,
I think that's a great referral for her, because the MakingHomesAffordable.gov website can probably be a good tool for her to look into, because I think she mentioned that she was upside down on the loan.
Right,
and
right.
That is what this program is about. The difference would be that if she's not, if it's that owner occupied,
right.
that may be the difference, as Maribel was saying.
Okay, and Judy, you've been quiet there, so I'm going to bring you in. How about Orange County residents? Are they being impacted? Tell us a little bit about what you know about your community.
Yes, they are being impacted, and what we're seeing is the people that are using our services now are people who have never had to use it before. You're talking about your middle income, higher income families who are suddenly hit with this recession and losing their homes, losing their jobs. So it's all over. We're not isolated. I know we're known as the wealthy community, but we certainly are having difficulties also.
Yeah, and you mentioned something, and Craig, you wanted to follow up on that.
Well, to add to that, and what we're finding is that people don't know how to navigate the system now that they're new to the system, and that's where 211 comes in. We can help them navigate the health and welfare, or whatever needs they have. We can help them navigate that system.
So I know you probably don't have exact numbers by any stretch, but to what degree can you characterize that your calls now are from people who have never used these kind of services before, that are finding themselves in this situation for the first time?
Well, I can tell you that it's we have a very high new call rate. So far this year, because our fiscal year will end at the end of June, we're looking pretty much close to 45 to 50,000 new callers to our system. In Riverside County, we have 2 million residents in Riverside County, and 50,000 people. That's a lot of people to be new to the system, and that's been going on for years. So it's constantly growing.
Our call volume's gone up 50% since last year this time. So it's definite new spikes.
Okay.
We have callers who are living in their car but don't consider themselves or don't refer to themselves as being homeless. It's really a paradigm shift for them, and it's difficult to face the fact that you need to go to a food bank. And food banks are not all equal. There's all kinds of different types of food banks, and you can't just go to the phone book and look up a food bank and know, oh, this is the one that is going to meet my needs, because they're very different from location to location.
I had this image of this call center being very similar to when you call some government agencies and the people are curt and they're short, and it's very bureaucratic, and you have a million auto menus to dive through to get to somebody that'll help. How are you different than that?
We only have one recording. Is that what language do you want to hear? Speak in English, Spanish, Vietnamese. And as soon as they pick the language of choice, they get a live operator or specialist on the phone who will start working with them.
And how about the other counties?
Well, we're pretty much the same setup. The thing that we really focus on is that these are our neighbors that are having these problems. We want to help. We're here to help our neighbors. And the bottom line is we want to, unofficially, we probably have a mission of getting coverage in all areas of our county. Our database idea would be thousands of agencies that are in every zip code that provide every service. And unfortunately, that's not the reality, but that's our unspoken goal. So we really care about our neighbors, and all our operators, our specialists, really try to reflect that.
Wonderful. I'm going to reach out to Sylvia from Paris. I know you've been waiting. It's your call. You're on the air.
Yes. Hi. I was just wondering what I could do in this situation. I'm 62 years old, and I have been in medical for 2.5 years. I do not know whether I will be able to go back to work. Anyway, my house is, I have a 2-month default. I believe the next step is foreclosure. I have called the lender and advised them of the situation, and they have told me that I need a job. I need to have some sort of income. They are willing to wait a couple of months, and I believe they put it in an unsecured loan. It's called an unsecured loan, and then I will be able to pay in installments. However, they are requiring that I do have some sort of salary income so that I will be able to pay. Now, I do not have an income at the moment. Is there anything else that I could be able to do in this case?
Good question, Sylvia.
My question back to her would be: is there the potential that she will go back to work at some point in time? And as we were discussing with our other partners before the show, in some cases, and maybe in this case, it might be a better idea to let the home go if there isn't steady income, because I don't know of any source that will subsidize the mortgage for on an ongoing basis. And then maybe come back at a later time where she can come in as a new buyer again at a lower rate with some assistance from some of these new programs. But the reality is that there isn't any program that I've ever heard of that is going to provide long-term mortgage assistance.
And what about, she mentioned that she doesn't feel capable of working. Can anybody at 211 or the resources you refer to help her assess whether or not she could qualify for some kind of disability subsidiary?
Absolutely. There's different programs, health services, and also programs that address or assess the financial needs of each person. So depending on what the reason is of why she's not able to work, we can kind of follow that and see what options we can provide her that might provide her some income based on her eligibility, meeting that.
Maribel, one thing I noticed is you actually provided kind of a reality check, and I appreciate this. We had another guest on last week, Bob, who was from the IWRC, the Inland Empire Economic Resource Corporation, and what he said is through his seminars over the housing, they put you in touch not only with people that can give the entire audience an education, but then one-on-one sessions with the individual attendees, and sometimes the outcome is your situation is untenable. Right. You can't stay in your current situation. Right. For other people, very often, there are programs they were unaware of or something that they can do. What you did was you just gave our audience member, our viewer, a hard fact, because I know we're all here to try to help our communities, and we all want to give them the answer that they would like to hear. When they call 211 and you recognize that their situation is as this person's was, is that what they will hear? Will they at least, to what degree do you advise them, or do you rely on your partners to advise them that they're going to have to change their life circumstances?
We do that all the time, especially with some of our new callers. They're not quite at the level of poverty where you're going to be eligible for food stamps and public assistance and some of the other benefits that we normally consider the government providing when you lose everything, right? Well, you have to have lost everything in order to qualify for some of these programs, and some of our callers are just not quite there. So a lot of times we're problem solving, we're talking through their family situation, is there anybody that they can stay with? We're working through possibilities with them, with the hard facts that the resources just aren't there because they're not eligible.
And often we call that 211, and Maribel knows this to be true, our creative resources.
Right.
Because truly sometimes we've exhausted every option that we could think of, and there just isn't going to be something that's going to be able to meet that particular need. So we do get creative, and we make suggestions about maybe sharing the home with a family member, thinking about taking in a roommate. Hey, how about having the pet stay with some friends while you temporarily stay at a transitional shelter until your situation gets remedied? So those are not uncommon things that we could talk to.
That's great. Okay. Let's talk to Lauren in Orange County. It's your call. What's your question?
Hi. I have a question. It's regarding my parents' situation. We live in Orange County, and they used to own 2 homes, and they had to foreclose on 1 home, so their credit shot. So they're not eligible to refinance or anything in the house that we're living in now. Our mortgage is $3,600 a month, and they can barely pay like $2,500 of it. So they're just really struggling to pay their mortgage, and they don't want to foreclose, and they really don't want to sell because the market's really bad, and this is what they wanted to use for their retirement. So they're kind of in a bind, and they're just not sure what to do.
Okay, so they call 211, and what are some of the things that you think that you could do as a resource for them?
Well, one thing, if they've never, if they're eligible, first, there's so many programs that you have to prove your eligibility based on your income levels. But if they are eligible, it might be they could get a one-time assistance on their mortgage payment, which will give them another 30 days to look at other resources that they can utilize to stabilize their income or their expenses and figure out what to do. So they might have, get a little cushion there if they are eligible for it.
So there are things you can do, and clearly, obviously, if they bought and own 2 homes, it might be that there one or more of them are unemployed right now, and that's a temporary situation. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can, I'm getting into the brainstorming. That's the 211's experts.
I think in some ways we may be a little spoiled. We turn on a light switch and the light just goes on, and magically we don't care how it happens. We just want it to happen every time we turn on the light switch. And those 28,000 resources in LA County, we don't have them in San Bernardino County. We have about 2,400 resources. But we don't have 28,000. And sometimes recognizing that what we're trying to do is help people help themselves. They are their number one resource. What we're here to do is to help them find help that is there. And sometimes the answer is that facing reality right now, that with no income, how can you possibly keep your home? It's the best thing we can do.
Okay, now we have several callers.
Although I want to go back to that previous caller, because that previous caller had described a situation that could also be something that could fit under the Making Home Affordable program, the makinghomeaffordable.gov website. It's both for refinancing and for loan modifications. So she should go to the website and see if the situation that she's describing for her parents is something that might fit her needs. So there is both the modification and the refinance for those for that situation if it's an owner-occupied home,
okay.
and they're current on their mortgage.
We have in the few minutes we have left, I want to get to the callers that are waiting for us. So we're going to kind of fast fire some answers for them if we can. I want to let our viewers know, though, that the reason that you're here today, the reason that we are engaging 211, and as the directors and executive directors of these programs, you don't have the answer specific for these callers in many cases, and we acknowledge that. The reason that they are here right now is we collectively, between PBS and 211, are reaching out and bringing together more resources that are specific to the mortgage crisis, and we're building that database now of mortgage assistance and HUD assistance people. You have many already in place, so when people call, they already have resources to go to. But with so much fraud and scam out there, we're collectively building up that library so we know who to direct you to, who to stay away from, what programs are valid and not. And together, you and your partners are helping us at PBS build out the information on the website that we're building to try to get people to be either self-sufficient in finding out who they need to talk to, or at least knowledgeable in what to ask 211 when they call. And of course, that's linked through kvcr.org, yes.
And what's not available today may be tomorrow. There's stimulus money coming down, and some of that is pointed specifically for foreclosure prevention. So even though a program may not be in place right now, next week it might be, and 211 is the one place that you can go to find the latest information.
Okay, good. Now I'm going to go out. Mary in Moreno Valley, you're on the air. What's your question?
Moreno, I'm thinking that we were doing fine until this came up, and I just don't like losing control, and I thought I had everything in place before retiring, and I know that you were trying to make us feel good with your comments earlier, but I'm sure that there's other people that feel the same way.
And do you have a specific question, Mary, or were you just addressing?
The question is just somehow try to keep in control of our own situation.
I understand. Craig?
I think that a lot of the organizations that we refer to have education components to them. And I think that when we're faced with crisis, we do feel out of control. When talking about this issue with my staff, repeatedly I heard how sad, how frustrated callers are. And obviously we're hearing that again. But information and knowledge and education can go a long way to combat that. And I think that we can help in that regard.
Okay,
and
great.
I think it's important also that while oftentimes these situations could make anyone, even us, feel that we don't have control, I think, again, empowering our callers and educating them on what options they have, it can give us a semblance of control because we're not walking in total darkness. We have some knowledge of what we can possibly do.
Okay, Mary from Ontario, I know you've been waiting. Thank you. Mary, you're on the air. What's your question?
You're welcome. I have a rental place which is rented to a family of 3, and they have a small kid. When I borrowed against when I refinanced my house, it was appraised for $250,000, and I borrowed $172,000 on my loan is, and then with the association fee and with the rent, I was a little bit negative, but because of the situation, one of them are not working, they cannot meet their rent, and they are always short. Some months they cannot pay, and I'm short of my, and I'm too much short, and also I have too much negative, and I have also lost my own income because I had to retire. I was sick, and then when I wanted to go back to work, they did not take me, so I had to retire. And I have used all of my resources to pay for the mortgage, but right now I'm facing I cannot take it anymore. I may let the house go, or if I can get some help.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Unfortunately for her, she's in a tough situation. She mentioned that her renter is also having a problem making their payments. So is this something where not only might she be able to find a resource through 211, but should she advise perhaps the tenants to go to 211?
There is mortgage assistance and there is rent assistance available. It comes through many different ways, and the federal government just released some additional money that goes through many organizations. But they are focused on making sure that if they utilize these scarce resources to help somebody, that it's going to get them over a temporary hump to a satisfactory solution. If 2 months down the road they're going to be in the same situation again, then they're going to think very carefully about using that money for this particular situation. So again, it's sometimes facing the harsh reality of if a little bit of help isn't going to get you where you need to be, then you may have to think of some other solutions, some more drastic solutions.
But the framework of those solutions, is that something 211 can help lay out some options for them?
Sure.
Right. Well, I mean, because of her specific situation where she is an asset owner, it's going to be much more difficult to get her into programs that might be able to subsidize her income, like food stamps or health insurance, public health insurance, that kind of thing. But the family who was renting, perhaps if we were able to connect them with, if they have small children, we could get them some assistance for free health insurance. They could be eligible for WIC or food stamps, maybe some utility assistance or discounted programs for phone service and other utilities in order to enable them to make the rent, which will then in turn help the landlord to sustain her income once again. So that might be an avenue for her to encourage the tenant to seek help so that her income can be restored. But being the owner of the asset makes it much more difficult to connect her with resources.
Because on paper, she's affluent.
Right, absolutely.
And,
okay.
And to add on to what Gary was saying, a lot of these agencies have one-time shot policies. They'll have the funds or the assistance available, but it's only one, maybe twice or...
Craig, I'm going to cut you off. Okay. That's the end of our show for today. And I want to let all of our viewers know that this is a continuing series. We're going to have 8 more episodes on this, as well as NPR broadcasts and website information linked from kvcr.org. I want to thank our guests, Craig Redelsperger, Judy Bowden, Gary Madden, and Maribel Marin, and Lyz Melendez. Thank you for being here with us and helping us understand 211. Thank you very much.